Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us to watch this information session with Xcel Energy. We are so excited today to have two of their employees working with us, Keaton Irons and Jenna McEwen. And so I'm going to let them go ahead and take away the presentation.
Absolutely, thank you. So my name is Keaton Irons. I'm a recruiter with Xcel Energy. I'm based here in Amarillo, Texas. I do a lot of the recruiting activities in our SPS area, which is our Xcel Energy Texas, New Mexico area. So we service West Texas and Eastern New Mexico. And then I have Jenna with me, and I'll let her introduce herself as well.
Hello, my name is Jenna, and I am a recruiter, operations recruiter based out of Denver, Colorado. I handle a lot of the distribution recruiting positions for our across the state of Colorado.
Perfect. All right. So our agenda today, we have prepared a presentation for you. We're going to go over an overview of the company. We're going to talk a little bit about our application process, and then provide some tips on our resume and interview as well. And then we'll have some time for a Q&A at the end. So I'll let Jenna kick it off with an overview of Xcel Energy.
Awesome. So just a little bit about Xcel Energy and who we are. We are a utility company. We provide electricity and natural gas to homes and businesses across 8 Western states, all those listed there. We have over 3 million electric and 2 million natural gas customers. So we're a pretty large company. We are headquartered out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, but also have corporate offices out of Denver, Colorado, where I am located, and Amarillo, where Keaton is. We're a Fortune 500 company and a leader in renewable energy. We have hit some major milestones with regards to renewable energy, which I'll speak briefly to, and Keaton is going to go over a little bit more. It's really exciting things happening with Xcel with regard to our carbon emissions. So you may have seen it in the media or news with regard to the press release with our 100% carbon-free electricity goal by 2050. It is a massive goal. We're headed there. 2019, we hit our 44% lower carbon emissions goal. By 2030, we're aiming for 80% lower. So we're headed there. It's a major goal of ours, which you may have seen. And our mission statement, we provide our customers with safe, clean, and reliable energy services they want and value at a competitive price. So that's just a little bit about us.
Perfect. And I guess, one thing to throw in here, since
if you want to get off with our...
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Most folks in this area, in Amarillo, Texas area, going to WT or I know there's a lot of online students as well, but in Texas, New Mexico, we just provide the electricity services. We generate electricity, get it out to homes and businesses. We don't do the natural gas side, but up in our northern territories, we do also do that on top of electricity. And so it's a pretty large company, and we do a lot of different things to make sure that we're providing these services to our customers as safe as possible. But as she mentioned, we do have some pretty hefty goals to reach. We have recently, set out on a goal to reach 100% carbon neutral electricity by 2050. And with that, we have a goal of 80% reduction in carbon emissions by 2030. And we are on track to meet that goal right now. And so how we're doing that is we're adding thousands of megawatts of wind and solar power electrical sources to our grid. We're incorporating natural gas and storage resources to balance more renewables. We're retiring more coal units, or we're changing their operations to reduce emissions overall. And then, of course, we also actually have nuclear power plants up in our Minnesota state territory. Up there, we have, I think 2 of them that are running and operating now, and that's actually a very clean, reliable source of electricity. A lot of people don't realize that, but nuclear is actually very clean, renewable energy. And then, of course, some other things we're doing, we're supporting electrification of certain end uses like electric cars. We're a very big supporter of those because it allows our grid to become more stable. And so that way we can kind of know what to expect in a sense of demand and that type of thing. And then lastly, we are investing in critical infrastructure such as transmission line across our service territory. And so for this next section, we will talk a little bit about our career opportunities. And so I guess to kind of start off this section, it's good to talk a little bit about some of the benefits with working for an electric utility company, and I guess utility company in general. What are some of the benefits with working at a company like Xcel Energy? Well, for starters, electricity is obviously very important. So one thing that I know for sure that I value and I greatly appreciate with this job I have is job security. And we're seeing that right now, I guess, with everything that's going on with COVID-19. There's a lot of companies who unfortunately are starting to lay off employees who are, they're hurting. And so fortunately, we're in a position where we work for a company that provides electricity, and we're essential and we're necessary even during these times. And then of course, something else I guess that gets me excited about being in this industry, particularly with Xcel Energy, is our goals. It's exciting. We don't know how we're going to reach 100% carbon neutral, electricity. We don't know how we're going to get there. And so it takes a lot of different people with a lot of different experience and expertise to come up with a way on reaching that goal. And so, it's just exciting. And in my role and in both of our roles, we're tasked with finding those people, bringing them into the organization, and then off they go. And they're the ones who are out there coming up with these solutions and, I guess in a sense, solving the world's problems, which with us, we're just trying to do our part by providing our electricity as cleanly as possible. So with that being said, we can talk a little bit about some of our specific career opportunities.
Keaton, I'm gonna. Oh.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just gonna speak to what you were just talking about. So I was at a career fair. This was like last fall, I think, and we had a couple directors that were able to attend, which is always wonderful because they can speak to students. And a lot of the management at Xcel has been through a ton of different various departments, positions, so they can really speak to the culture and what it's like working for Xcel. And I remember one of them was telling the students, hey, 2008 hit, you were young then, but I didn't lose my job. And I saw all my counterparts losing their positions because 2000, it was a recession. The economy was hit super hard, and at Xcel we were safe. And I thought, wow, it's such an interesting speaking point because that was before everything with COVID had happened. And now even more true to his point is, yes, we do still have our positions. Nobody's been laid off. We're continuing to grow. And it is, especially for the younger generation, something really to take into account when you're looking at positions and looking at careers moving forward is trying to work for companies that, might be recession proof because we don't know if this will happen again. And I thought that that was an interesting speaking point. So I just wanted to touch on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for throwing that in. Yeah. And like she said, we're kind of proving it again with this whole pandemic thing. It's unfortunate for those, who unfortunately are being laid off or being furloughed, but while you're making your career choice now, for those who are graduating soon or even looking for internships, start looking for those companies that are proven. They have a proven track record, like Xcel Energy and there's other industries out there too that are the same way. But that's definitely something to consider whenever you're looking for opportunities out of college. But anyway, we'll jump into some specific career opportunities that we offer at Xcel Energy. So I'll go over some of the operations side. So operations is going to be anything not corporate, which that's probably not a very good definition. But corporate's very obviously different, and Jenna will go over that here in a little bit. But for operations, so some of our main departments are going to be distribution, transmission, energy supply, and gas. And so just a very quick overview. Distribution is going to be primarily the electricity, the power lines you see in your backyard or in your alley, the shorter ones that are just in city limits. Transmission is the huge power lines you see out while you're driving down the highway. They're transporting much higher voltage electricity further distances and it basically all connects. So the grid is just it's the whole thing. And then we have energy supply, which is going to be like our power plants, which you see in the image there. We've got our power plants, our wind farms, our solar farms, hydro, nuclear. Nuclear is its own thing, but technically it is energy supply, and they all fall into the energy supply. So some common job titles, certainly in our service area here in Texas, New Mexico, engineering is very popular. We have those opportunities pop up pretty frequently. And we work with WT and some other local or regional schools nearby to help fill these positions and our internship positions that come available for those. So we have our engineer hierarchy, which is going to be entry level through principal level. So there's a step there where you can kind of see yourself in the future, I suppose. And then of course we have internships available for almost every role. Another common job title is going to be something like project scheduler, which is going to be in our project management group. We have work coordinators. And then for just about every department, we're going to have some sort of analyst or data scientist or someone that works with numbers and data to help the business make informed decisions. And then for corporate, I'll turn it over to Jenna and let her talk a little bit about those opportunities.
Sure. Bear with me. Operations is more my area, but I will definitely speak to the main departments within our corporate functions and even potential opportunities moving forward with what we're seeing come available, especially during this time. So finance is a large one, of course. We have our accountants. We actually have analysts within our finance region. Human resources, which of course is where Keaton and I fall under with recruiting, also fairly large. Our legal, we do have our lawyers, which at Xcel, which some are environmental. We do work with them within human resources as well. So we have a legal department, and then of course marketing, which albeit it's not as large, we do still see marketing internships come available. So Xcel does have a marketing department. It's really interesting. A lot of the material they're creating is centered around our low emissions drive and goals. So that's pretty interesting as well. Common job titles, as I mentioned before, accountant, HR generalist, you'll find within human resources. Recruiters, we often partner with our HR generalists within our positions. Paralegal, of course, under the legal department, communication consultant, and workforce relations, which would be under HR. I did have the opportunity to speak with one of our corporate recruiters just to kind of get a feel of what she's seeing come available, at least right now, especially with entry-level positions. And they're slowly starting to churn back and come available. They're not, with regard to the corporate positions and operations during the last 3 or 4 months, a lot of our corporate have been slightly put on hold. But as of last month or so, they're starting to open back up. And some of those are data associate analysts, disbursement specialists. Sounds fancy, but it's an entry level position. Finance consultants, and then of course a bunch of positions within supply chain, which is a pretty robust department at Xcel. So those are some of the ones that we're starting to see come back available and under the corporate umbrella.
Perfect. Thank you. I know whenever I started at Xcel Energy, one thing that kind of surprised me was the fact that we had a marketing department at all.
Yeah.
Just because you don't really associate advertisements or that type of thing with utility companies, but they do a lot of work, and it's actually pretty cool what they do. But we'll move over to our next section. So one thing that Xcel Energy has that people going to college actually will probably relate to is we have these business resource groups. which is going to be similar to, the student groups that you have on campus. And I'll let Jenna kind of speak on some of the, I guess, the larger groups that we have. I don't know, you don't have to go through all of them.
Yeah, we have quite a few, which is a good thing. So business resource groups or BRGs or ERGs, there's some variations of the name. Within the corporate world, so effectively these can be small groups, some larger. They're made up of employees that are centered around, similar interests that they're focusing on, whether it's an organizational goal that they're gathering together, volunteering together, it's a cultural interest. We have a couple major ones at Xcel. I'll speak to a few of them. One is our MOVE group, which is our military ombudsman for veterans and employees. So at Xcel, we are committed to hiring veterans. Actually, 1 in 10 of our new hires have served in the armed forces, which I think is pretty incredible considering how large this company is. So as being a part of MOVE, so when an employee comes on full-time as a new hire, they can join this business resource group, which effectively engages the employees with service members, veterans, and their families in a bunch of different ways, including like ongoing transition support, peer mentoring, community events like Memorial Day flag planning, sending care packages to deployed service members. So just making veterans feel like they have a family within their own here at Xcel, and they're remaining connected. So our MOVE group is huge. Non-veterans can also be a part of it if they choose, and that is something I really like about our BRGs. They're not just exclusive towards that specific type of employee with that specific type of background. Anyone can join these groups and be a part of them. I'm a part of the Employee Connection Network, otherwise known as ECN. And we get together monthly and it's employees from all over Xcel that join and just talk about what's going on in their department. And you get to learn about just different areas and what they're about and the type of projects they're working on. And because sometimes when you're at a company that is this big, it's tough to know what different departments are doing and what their day-to-day looks like. So it's just a nice way to network. We do community events, volunteer events, happy hours, fun stuff like that. So I know there's a lot of different groups here, and Keaton's a part of SAGE, so maybe Keaton,
Yeah.
you can touch on SAGE.
I can do that. And so SAGE is this, well, it's actually changed the name. So we've changed from SAGE to Pride Alliance to make it a little more obvious of what exactly this group is, because no one knows what SAGE means. But it's an LGBTQ supportive group at Xcel Energy, and we also focus a lot on allyship. So we have a lot of members across the organization, and we all come together, and we'll have networking events. We'll do all sorts of volunteer activities. It's a really interesting thing, and that's really how all these groups are. They do a lot of community outreach. They work a lot with our community and volunteer a lot of time, and so they're all really they're all really useful, both in terms of connecting employees together, but also connecting the organization with the community that they serve. But I think that's probably it for this slide. So let's see. Yes, so we'll move on. So this next section, we'll kind of talk a little bit about our application process and what it's like to, I guess, apply to a job with Xcel Energy. And so for this part, I've just taken some screenshots of the process, so I'll kind of keep it pretty brief. Basically, all you really have to do is just visit the website. You go to jobs.xcelenergy.com, and then down on the search bar, right there, you can see it in the bottom left. You can just type in sort of a keyword of what you're looking for. If you're looking for an internship, just type in intern. Or if you're looking just based on location, you can type in Amarillo, Texas, and it'll just pull up the jobs most relevant to what you're looking for. So like in this example, I searched for engineer. So it'll pull up everything that matches what you're searching for, and then it'll also kind of cast a wide net and show you some extra stuff as well. And then all you have to do is apply, and it's actually pretty easy. The process is pretty simple. They definitely make it as easy as possible. Now, there are a few tips that we have for people as they begin to look at opportunities and go out and apply. The first tip is going to be, please read the job description and the requirements. You're going to want to make sure that you meet all the requirements that are listed. Now, it's going to be broken up between minimum requirements, and then there's going to be preferred requirements. And obviously, so the minimum requirements, you have to meet those to qualify for the position. You know, in terms of that requirement, it's, you know, there's no wiggle room. We can't really make decisions based on who we know or anything like that. And then another tip is, please make sure to answer all the pre-screening questions, especially if you've just graduated college. I like to make a joke here that if you're an engineer who has 40 years of experience, you might be able to get away with putting C resume, because sometimes that just makes sense. If you just graduated with your engineering degree and you're going out and applying for a bunch of jobs and you put C resume, as a recruiter, I just don't have time to look at every single person's resume in detail, and that's just the truth. And so please do your best to kind of spell out what your experience is. Sell yourself to the organization each and every time you apply somewhere. Otherwise, you know, you're going to find it's hard to find an opportunity if you're not putting in the effort. Because no one said it was easy, you know. Upload an up-to-date resume every time. PDF format is very highly recommended. I know as recruiters we'll run into some people who have uploaded resume as document files. Every now and then it'll just mess up the I guess how it looks, and that's not really your fault, but it's one of those things that you can't avoid if you just save it as a PDF file. And so there's some of our quick tips. And so this slide is very relevant today. So if you're not finding any opportunities that really match your interests, there's a way to go in and you can connect with us and create a profile. Maybe you don't graduate for 3 more years, but you want to go ahead and create a profile and start seeing what we have available. You can go out to our website, upload your resume, you can set up job alerts. And then that also makes you searchable so that recruiters can go in whenever we're filling a position, we can search for people that we're looking for in our system, and you're already there. And say we find you and you're a perfect match for this role we're hiring for, with just a click of a button, we can send you an email saying, hey, this looks like something you might be interested in. Do you want to apply? Very, very easy for us to do that if you've already gone in and done this. And then, you know, one thing to consider is if you're still interested in the company, you're going to want to go in and update your profile pretty consistently. It's, you know, that's something that we'll come across pretty often is someone who has a profile from 2 years ago, apply to a job and they haven't updated anything. And it's like, we got these long gaps and we're trying to figure out exactly what's going on. But that's a good way to, you know, if you don't see something you want, or if you're just kind of browsing, this is a really good way to stay in the loop. And Jenna, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to add on a couple notes with regard to internships and applying and tips and tricks. So with internships, they can be highly competitive. I will say that little things, especially, you know, as an intern, managers don't expect you to have 2, 3, 4, 5 years of experience. So what's there is important. Little things like grammatical errors. If you're applying to Xcel Energy, that you're not spelling it EXCEL, which
please spell the name right.
we do often see and you want to avoid. Having a cover letter. I've had internships that I've been a recruiter for where the manager said, well, I don't know why they want to work here. So why would I interview them? There's no cover letter. I don't see their interest. And I thought, okay, well, valid. So things like cover letters, anything that might be relevant to the position itself, any sort of volunteer work, all those things are really important. Updating your skills, as Keaton said. So in the profile, making sure that you're keeping that up to date as you acquire new skills. Maybe it's new systems knowledge. All of that is looked at. So just little things to help in the recruiting process and kind of get your foot in the door to be seen.
Absolutely. Yeah, and really these tips apply across the board. It's not just to our organization, to be honest. You know, pretty much any larger organization is going to want you to do the same things for sure. But we'll move on to our next section, and I have a slide for questions, but we'll save questions for the end and just kind of jump into our resume overview just real fast. And so since WT has some really good resources already available for you to use, like the Career Services Office, we'll kind of run through this pretty quick because I think they're probably going to have some similar ideas to us. But just a quick overview, resumes are very important. So it's a marketing tool. It's a way for you to present yourself as you wish to be viewed, get attention. You're going to obviously put work history, education, accomplishments, everything in one easy to read piece of paper for the recruiter to look at. Even though we can't always look at every single resume, usually once we get through our screening process, that's whenever we start to get a little more detailed and actually start really, really looking at the details as far as the resume goes. So this section, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the reasons recruiters and hiring leaders will discard resumes. Kind of like what Jenna was saying earlier, some common issues, especially for entry-level positions, maybe you don't have a lot of experience yet, spelling, grammatical errors, redundancies, generic language, a summary that takes up half your page, generic objective, poor visual formatting, no contact information is a very surprising one that I've seen several times, more than several times. Irrelevant experience and too much personal information. These are all some of the common issues we'll come across as recruiters. And then some other issues we'll see is seeing the same resume repeatedly. You want to make sure that you're standing out as much as you can. Job hopping, large unexplained gaps in employment. Again, kind of going back to earlier, not being qualified for the job. And then surprisingly, a large number of people don't include a resume at all when they apply. And usually that's a pretty automatic decision, just because if we have 120 people who have all provided a resume, you're the one who didn't, what do we have to work with there? Incomplete profile, and then of course the C resume response from earlier that I had mentioned. And so some quick tips, and again, I know WT has really good resources available to them, but customize your resume to the job you're applying, especially if it's a company that you're very much interested in. It definitely can set you apart because a lot of people just upload the same resume for every application they submit. And if you're truly interested in the company, if you customize your resume and your cover letter to that company, it's going to set you apart. Action verbs: accomplished, achieved, adapted, analyzed, delegated, etc. White space: how will you benefit the employer with your cover letter? So basically, why should they choose you? Make sure to answer that question in your cover letter. And then some structure tips. Use a decent format template. Templates are fine. Just use one that's not too busy. Keep it simple. Usually with resumes, the simpler it is, the better. Heading: make sure your contact information and your name is where the eyes are drawn to. We want to see that very easily. We shouldn't, don't make us dig for that information. Objectives are good, especially if you're, I guess, customizing it to the job you're applying for, the company you're applying for. Make sure your qualifications are laid out nicely, work experience the same way, education, etc., all that fun stuff. And so I said it'd be quick, and it was. So we'll move over to our interview section. And so this section, I think, is probably a really good insight for you into our hiring process, because some companies do interviews just a little bit different. And so it's good to kind of have an idea of what that's like. And so you're getting a little sneak peek. And so the first thing that I always recommend to my candidates is almost every interview, the first question is going to be, tell me about yourself. Be prepared to be able to talk about yourself, who you are, what you do, why you're the best candidate. Think of it as a commercial, you should always be ready to answer that question, whether you're at an interview or not. Maybe you run into someone in an elevator. That's why they call it an elevator speech, and you just need to quickly tell that person about yourself, who you are. And then for us, as far as our formal interviews go, we use behavioral experience-based interviews. And so kind of an example question of what you might see is, well, not an example question, but I guess the answers we like to receive from our questions, or how we like to have them laid out, is, talk about the situation, who was there, what did you do, think, feel, say, what was the outcome. Kind of break down your answers and make sure that you're answering all those pieces. And then our interview questions are specific to our competencies, and responses are expected to relate to past experiences, whether it's professional work experience or school project work, that type of thing. Just do your best to relate it back to your own life. And then some of our competencies can include job, technical expertise, communication, customer or client focus, teamwork, and leadership. And then continuing a little bit on that, what you want to provide is detailed examples of actual on-the-job behavior and personal contributions to outcomes. And again, this can apply to college project work as well. A good sense of current proficiency on critical competencies of the job. Try to come up with real-life data or examples to use. And then for the last point here, don't lie, don't come up with fake stories. Because the way our interviews are structured, we're gonna follow up on your answer. And so if you're lying, at some point it's going to be hard to keep that going because we're going to keep referencing back to whatever you had told us. So, and then kind of what we call this is the STAR method. So it's situation, task, action, result. What is the situation, topic, or story? What needed to be achieved? What did you do? What action did you take? And what were the results or outcomes of your actions? And so that's our overview of our interview process.
I'll chime in here real quick.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So, well, a couple of things. So with this STAR method, it sounds like a lot when you're going into an interview, like, oh gosh, I have to think of all these things. But it is really helpful to, and you'll feel more prepared if you come in just with some background experiences on hand that you've practiced and have this laid out, because this isn't just specific to Xcel, this method. Many companies use it, the situation, task, action, results. So it is helpful to just think of scenarios in your head of, sometimes I know we did a panel with students at CU Boulder, and we were mock interviewing them, and we could tell who had prepared for the mock interviews and who hadn't, just based on past experiences they were able to draw from, whether it was a project they they worked on in school, or just a past volunteer experience or something personal. It's very helpful to practice these and just to have available situations that you know you have the method down, and what was the situation, what was the result. You have it practiced, because it's very apparent going into interviews who has practiced and rehearsed and who is not. And if your university does have this panel where you can go in, I know a lot of them do, and have these mock sit down interviews, I would highly, highly recommend to take advantage of that. They're incredibly helpful. The interviewers will ask you questions and put you on your feet, on the spot answers that will kind of just better prepare you for a real life interview and what to expect and what it feels like. And yeah, definitely would recommend taking advantage of those services if you have them at your current school.
Absolutely.
Sorry, Keaton.
Yeah, no, you're good. And on top of that, actually, I think we volunteered and helped with WT's career services in the past. And whenever we do that, a lot of times we do use our actual interview questions. So it is very, very, it's a really good opportunity to go out and kind of experience what these interviews are like. But really for the most part, that wraps up our interview overview. And then really that kind of wraps up our presentation for today. And so I think the next section is our Q&A. And I guess just real quick, I don't know if anyone joined live or not, but if there's any students on live, you can scan this QR code real fast if you'd like, and you can take our survey and it'll share your email with us, and then we can reach out to you. But with that, I will stop sharing my screen, and I think there's probably some questions, and so we can just kind of do that.
Well, Keaton and Jenna, thank you so much for the time that you've invested to share this information with our students. And I know as career services professionals, so much of what you told the students, we were so excited to hear you reiterate the things that we share during our presentations. And so I just have a couple, a couple of things I want to ask. So first of all, tell us, should students apply for more than one position with Xcel, or does that look bad?
I'll take that one, Keaton.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We encourage, whether it's an intern, entry level, mid-level, director level, apply many positions as you are qualified for. It'll better your chances. It's not going to hurt you in any way to apply to more than one position. So any and all that you're qualified for and you're interested in, absolutely apply for.
Thank you. And you mentioned, and we know of several students who have benefited from your internship program at Xcel. One of the things that we worry about with our students is sometimes they can be late to the party. So you come in April and you decide you'd like to be an intern, a summer intern at Xcel, that might be a little late. So could you give us an idea about the timeline for your internship hiring?
Sure, I'll take this one. So we're a little different. I know, especially in Xcel Energy, Texas, New Mexico, a lot of our internships can actually be posted for year round. So what we'll do is during the school year, we'll work with them on the schedule and make them part-time so that they can attend class, but still work with us as much as they can or as much as they want to after class. And so we have that, but we also do, of course, have a lot of summer internships, and usually those are going to run, they could start getting posted as early as April or so, and then they usually wrap up in August. So, but yeah, really you can find them any time of the year. I think that's why job alerts are so important. Even if you're not graduated yet, you can go ahead and set up an intern job alert. And if for some reason there is an oddball one that gets posted in, like, I don't know, February, you'll get an email about it and you can go and apply.
So let's talk a minute about follow-up on your application. So you've applied to your dream internship to become a marketing intern in the summer, and you really want the job, and it's been a couple of weeks, you've applied for the job. What is your recommendation about how or if students should follow up?
Maybe we both have a different take on it.
I'll let you, Jenna. You go ahead.
Sure. So as recruiters, we do get reached out to quite a bit. I will say that it doesn't hurt. It's one more step in showing that you want this job, you're interested in the position. I know oftentimes for positions, you'll just have the general recruiting inbox email with Xcel, but we do monitor that inbox, and we do see those emails of people just reaching out again. Hey, I applied. Is this position still open? I'm still interested. It helps. It helps, especially when there's a couple hundred on a position. So I don't think it hurts. I'm certainly not going to do anything by showing additional interest.
So not to sound foolish, but you certainly don't want them to do that daily, right? And so like what would you say is an appropriate amount of time to wait before a student follows up from your perspective, and how often should they follow up thereafter?
Maybe a couple weeks, okay. Especially with entry level and internship positions. The hiring leaders usually take a little bit longer to kind of sort through their applicant pool and take their time. So initially, because the applicants will get that initial email saying, hey, we received your resume, your application, we'll be in touch. I'd say wait a couple weeks. Sometimes we get people reaching out like 2 days later,
yes,
which is fast. But yeah, I'd say a couple weeks initially, and then if they haven't heard anything, which is honestly not our intention to keep applicants on the line like that. We try to let candidates know as soon as we can who we're moving forward with. So maybe, I don't know, another couple of weeks or so. Keaton, what do you think with the second follow-up?
Yeah, I'd say a week or two probably would be best.
Okay, great. So I loved how you talked about your necessary qualifications. And so I think it's an important thing to follow up on, because essentially if a candidate doesn't meet those necessary or required qualifications, they're not going to get an interview, correct? So when you talk about how important it is that if they have those qualities, to be sure that they're highlighting those on their resume. And so if I understand correctly, they may not meet the preferred qualifications, and then they could potentially still get an interview depending on, the applicant pool. But could you just speak to that one more time?
Yeah, sure. So, I think with that, what I'm mostly saying is if we have a position posted that has, a requirement for 9 years of experience as an engineer, and you just graduated, like just look out for that type of thing. But yeah, still at the same time, be careful even for the entry-level jobs. You know, if you aren't 100% sure, I always say go ahead and apply just in case. But make sure, yes, that you're highlighting your resume and really showing us where that experience is coming from. You know, I would always say apply before not applying if you're unsure, just because you don't want to completely, you know, at least you have somewhat of a chance, but at the same time, be mindful of it, I guess, is kind of my approach on that.
So one thing I'd like to ask is, you know, we help a lot of freshman students who, you know, they're excited and they have these career dreams, and we talk a lot about marketable skills and becoming career ready throughout their time at the institution. So based on like your experience in reviewing like resumes for recent college graduates, are there any particular skills that you notice students aren't highlighting that they should be? I'm sorry, that was a little bit of a long question, but are there some skills that you would say, students, be sure you've got this particular quality that we're looking for in lots of our positions?
Jenna, do you want to go ahead?
Jenna's
So,
up next.
so hiring leaders I've spoken with, a lot of them circle back to the effective communicators. I know that's hard to convey in a resume. However, I think that can be done in a cover letter. And that is why letters are so important with internships, because it gives potential interns and the opportunity to just speak to why they care about for this, working for Xcel, maybe certain volunteer programs they've been a part of, or just ways to demonstrate that, you know, they are great communicators, because that's the gripe, the number one gripe I've heard from leaders, with, hey, why maybe an intern didn't work out, or maybe they did, what made them a great intern? And it's their ability to work within a team. Because whether you're an entry-level intern, you're mid-level leader, you're whatever level you are at Xcel, how effective you are at your job, ability to work, a large part of it is work within a team. So if you can show that as an intern on your application through a cover letter, or maybe even your resume, very helpful.
Thank you.
I kind of have a piggyback question on that.
No, that was excellent. Thank you.
You mentioned that you didn't want to see non-relevant experience. And so when our students hear that, what they're going to say is, you don't need to know that I worked on campus or that I worked as a resident assistant, because that's not relevant to being an engineer. But that's the place probably where they're going to develop some of these skills. So can you kind of speak to what don't you want to see about those kinds of jobs?
So, and I think with that section there, mostly that's going to apply to someone with a little more experience, I would think, because really for our entry-level jobs, you know, definitely fill it in as much as you can with like your project experience at school, maybe what groups you've been involved with, that type of thing. But for entry-level jobs, I would say irrelevant experience is okay, like, you know, part-time jobs or whatever, that's going to be okay. But I think if we're looking at someone with a little more experience and we're, you know, I don't want to see a 4-year engineer put that they worked at McDonald's 6 years ago, that type of thing. So I probably need to make that a little more clear in my presentation. But I think, Jenna, would you agree? I think it's okay to see some part-time work and stuff like that.
Especially at the bottom section of a resume of like additional skills, whether it's like systems knowledge or, you know, any sort of leadership. An RA would be leadership, right? You were overseeing all the students that are on the floor. Anything like that is, I would, of course, for like Keaton said, to entry level or internship, include it. Anything you have to pull from, because I know that's tough when you're starting out in your career, whether it's an internship or entry level, to pull from experience you've had, because for, you know, you're young. Managers don't expect you to have a ton of experience. So you put on there to separate yourself skill wise, or being in any sort of leadership position, you project leader, group leader, definitely include that. Yeah.
Great. Thank you for that clarification.
Well, Keaton and Jenna, we just want to thank you again for being supportive of our students and providing this information. We just thank you for the way you've partnered with us over the years and the way that you've helped WT students in the past. So thank you so much for your time today. I know that our students are going to benefit from this info session. So you all take care.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for having
Thanks,
us.
you. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yes.